Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 3D Printing News Unpeeled with Joris Peels and 3dprint.com. We hope you enjoy this episode. We've got a couple of news items for you today. We have 5 in total, and we're going to go through them one by one for you. And yeah, let's get started, shall we? So, number 5 is Conflux. Conflux is an Australian startup and they make heat exchangers, so 3D printing for heat exchangers, which is a very exciting application because it lets you reduce the mass of the heat exchanger, optimize flow of the heat exchanger, and change the characteristics of the 3D printed part as per like whatever your liquid is doing, or maybe it's a gas, or maybe it's flowing around. So you can optimize it really. And so this is a very very kind of uh, a very big deal. I think that they're doing this, and I think it's a huge area. There are other people playing in this area as well, including Temist, which is doing it in aerospace, and IQ Evolution, which is doing it for a lot of electronics and things like that. And Themis, the French company, may very well find itself with some new competition because Conflux has just recently got its AS9100D registration. So AS9100D is a quality management standard for aerospace and defense. It's not exclusively for those industries. You can use it outside those industries if you want. It's a very tough standard to adhere to. The bar is very, very high. But you need it if you want to play in aerospace and defense. If you want to be a defense contractor, you need this standard in your life. It's very difficult to get. It's very laborious to get as well. So Conflux is definitely not doing this on a whim or something like that. This was a tough thing for them to do, and it means that they're very focused on aerospace or defense, and we see a lot of applications for aerospace and defense for 3D printing. Heat exchangers for aircraft, for missiles, or heat exchangers or in heat sinks and other heat cold plates and other components for satellites and these kind of things. And then there's also a lot of military vehicles that use heat exchangers and stuff like that. So there's could be a lot of applications there in the defense or aerospace area. So that's really holding up. I think it's a good move by Conflux to see this and to get the certification. So yeah, very good news for them. Less good news is number 4. That comes to us from 3dprintingindustry.com. The previous news came to us from 3dprint.com. And that is Shapeways getting a warning. So Shapeways, the SPAC traded company, the 3D printing service, has gotten a warning from the New York Stock Exchange that it isn't in compliance with the listing standards because the average closing price of the stock was below $1 for a period of time. So Shapeways actually has a time to reply and then about 6 months to right the situation. They said they want to look at like a reverse stock split to get them above the $1 mark. This is, of course, not great news at all. And you may know that maybe some of you may know that I used to work for Shapeways, so that's there's a little point of pride there as well as a former employee, as a first employee as well. So that's not great. And what's also not great is the fact that if we're talking about if we're looking at Q2 revenue is a little bit lower now than it was a year ago, and the company's already spent around 50 million of the 100 million it raised. So things are looking, they still have money. They still are a publicly traded company, so that gives them options. They just generally have time to turn this around. But I hope they do. I think we're in the process of a big SPAC hangover essentially, where people are souring about these SPAC stocks and the 3D printing ones as well. And generally valuations are a bit rocky, if you will. Under a lot of there's a lot of news happening essentially. There's a lot of stuff happening that can make people a bit jittery. So it's not a great time, but I think let's hope they turn it around and give themselves a long future on the New York Stock Exchange. The number 3 news is the American Petroleum Institute is publishing the 20T standard. The API is a group of petroleum companies working together, and they just published a standard for 3D printed polymer parts. Oil and gas, a lot of people think of metal always, but there's a lot of potential there for polymer parts as well. And the people that worked on this standard, this will give you a little bit of an idea how that the emissaries they sent to work on the standard. There are people from Rebose, which is a very smart move of them to get involved in this, by the way. ConocoPhillips, BP, Baker Hughes, Technip, FMC, which is like a subsea type company, Flowserve, which is a really big company in industrial pumps, Halliburton, Exxon, Mobil, KSB, which is a big German pump manufacturer as well. And they're all in on the standard as well. So yeah, this is a huge market in MRO, in making out of production parts, in making parts to order quickly, making very specific solution parts, making parts on board oil platforms or remote stations, emergency repair, kind of also generally problem solving stuff, like where a drilling team or some kind of team somewhere will have a problem, they don't know how to solve it, and then this kind of, I don't want to say in this context improvised, but these kind of like exigent type solutions that lend themselves very well to 3D printing. So for that kind of thing, I think the potential is huge. And on top of that, of course, you see that by the KSB and Flowserve being here. In and of itself, just the potential for 3D printed valves and pumps is, I think, reducing mass again, making things flow better, filtering, making things out of fewer parts. These are all things that would make a lot of sense for industrial pumps and valves. And we're seeing companies like IMI are 3D printing valves, and there's lots of other companies that are working on these kind of things as well. So I think this is going to be a bigger thing forward. The number 2 story is from Nature Communications, and it's an integrated 3D printing of flexible electroluminescent devices and soft robots. This is research by Pei Zhang and a whole bunch of other people at the Southern University of Science and Technology in Shenzhen. So first off, a couple of things. What's soft robotics? Soft robotics is well, that's exactly what it says on the tin. It's robots that are soft. There are very few applications. There's always this thing. Soft robotics has interested me for a couple of years now, and there really haven't been a lot of applications, a lot of really good applications to commercialize this or to explain why it's needed in the world. But the idea is a completely different paradigm of robots. No servers, no metal parts, no assemblies and things, just like robots made out of like elastomers, or robots made out of like soft materials that, if the temperature in your room rises, like heat activated material will make the robot kind of contract and crawl. This is the kind of stuff that people are doing with soft robots. Again, it's an interesting area, still wouldn't know what to do with it. But Pei Zhang et al. Did some interesting stuff with it, definitely. What they did is they used DirectWrite to 3D print glow-in-the-dark or electrically activated glow-in-the-dark parts, which apparently worked, which was very, very good. And what they then subsequently did is they attached these parts. Oh wait, I forgot a whole bunch of pictures. I'm sorry, guys. I totally forgot the pictures. But and what they, I'll put the picture up now. This is important. So what we then saw is what they did is they then put a light sensor on it, and the idea is that this soft robot would adapt its camouflage, the 3D printed camouflage, to whatever light it saw or light it sensed on the other side. So this is a really rather interesting application, and the idea is to the little X-shaped soft robot would then use the DirectWrite components to change its color according to what it needs, and then use soft camouflage. So that's, I thought, this is something I couldn't have come up with. I mean, not even that I couldn't do the research, but I mean, this as an idea, I think is really very, very exciting and new. So I don't know if this is, if we're going to see a lot more glow in the dark 3D printing stuff, but as an idea, this is really quite interesting. And then the number 1 news is Nuburu, which, yeah, you can see it on the screen. Nuburu, Nuburu. I don't know how to pronounce it. Gets an SBIR grant from AF Works or F Works, Air Force Works. I think it's like a Small Business Innovation Research Phase 2 contract by the U.S. Air Force. And they're getting that to develop a blue laser 3D print solution using area print technology. Area print is the idea to illuminate large print area beds, which is what Surratt, for example, is trying to commercialize using V-cells. Nuremberg now is getting a grant. I cannot yet, I tried to look it up, but I can't yet find it in the database. So I don't know how much money they're getting essentially from the Air Force. But the idea is for them to get a blue laser kind of powder bed fusion technology to use these lasers, and then hopefully what they're trying to get is 100 times better build speed, 100x on build speed. They also want to have minimal to zero post processing, and also reduce part shrinkage. At the same time, they also hope to get 10x or 10 times larger parts and 10 times larger productivity. So that's quite ambitious, and it would be very well. You know, we see a lot of experimentation with light sources, and for example, about polymerization. Um, Meanwhile, in powder bed fusion, other technology, we don't see a lot of simulation really with these kind of with light sources as much. So that is to be applauded. It's a very lofty goal. Nuruburu, by the way, is also trying to do a SPAC as we speak. So I hope that doesn't have too much to do with this. But this is again, yeah, it's interesting to see people do this and try to do this. So that was the news for today. So Nubaru is got a U.S. Air Force grant to develop a 100 times faster 3D printing technology using blue lasers. We have people at the Chinese university working on 3D printed camouflage using direct write, robots, and lots of other people work with the American Petroleum Institute to make a standard for polymer 3D printing for petroleum. Shapeways gets a warning from the New York Stock Exchange, and Conflux, the heat exchanger company from Australia, got a AS9100D certification. So this is the 3D printing news unpeeled. Thank you so much for your time today, and enjoy yourself.